Hello everybody, back again with another video for you all. I basically just wanted to go briefly over the patch notes and my opinion of subclassing that will be introduced to the Elder Scrolls Online. This is PvP directed only because there is a numerous array of issues with the proposed changes to PvP that ZeniMax are doing with subclassing. Um, in my opinion, they've genuinely broke the game for PvP. But more into it as I talk about it later in the video. I just quickly want to run over some of the patch notes before I get into it. Primarily Grim Focus. Now, if you read this, it says this ability and its morphs can now stack up to 10 times rather than 5, which basically means that it's going to give um, double the weapon and spell damage than what you can currently get on live. But then they've decreased the weapon and spell damage by 25%. So basically, double what you can get on live and minus 25%. That is how much weapon and spell damage you are now going to get due to this, which is a buff. On all abilities that their maximum stack count has increased. More specifically, weapon and spell damage is reduced to 45 for Grim Focus and Merciless Resolve down from 60 per stack. This is not really that important, really. It is a buff because you can actually get double the stacks. So that's a buff in one area. But the main issue is these abilities now. You can now basically get 2 stacks of Grim Focus that you can keep. So, but on live currently, you would get up to 5 light attacks, and then you would cast Grim Focus. Now you can light attack to get up to 5 stacks, cast Grim Focus, do a heavy attack, and then get 2 Grim Focuses off the bat. It's basically a spammable. Grim Focus now, if done properly, is now a spammable, and this is such a major issue with the game. I did some dueling on PTS with people who just literally changed their offensive skill line just to Grim Focus, and it's broken. It is the most broken an offensive skill has ever been, basically. You basically have a proc ability that is now a spammable. Imagine if frags was a spammable. That's basic. But this actually hits harder than frags, you know. So it broke the game. It drastically needs addressing. Um, it should not have double stacks. You should not be able to double stack it. And one other thing that I noticed is that it's only viable when you are in melee range, because heavy attacks are so much more viable in melee range compared to range builds in PvP that it's not really viable on a Mag Sorc. Right? It's just not really viable. If you're in melee range, you automatically have an advantage when using this, you know, because you can light attack, get up to 5 stacks, hit specky bow, then you can heavy attack and have 2 more specky bows. You have 3 specky bows. Like, it's insane how overpowered this actually is. Right? And that's just the assassination skill line. Never mind when you combine this, right? Never mind when you combine this with sub assault on top, in cap. Bear in mind, in cap increases the damage of all of your abilities done to your opponent. So if you have in cap, which by the way is in the assassination skill line, just like Grim Focus, so you've got 3 specky bows in cap. You've got Sub Assault and Surprise Attack, all doing 20% more damage. It's absolutely insane how broke this is, right? Subclassing broke the game, but this on top of it drastically just changes the dynamics of ESO PvP forever if this goes live. And I've got to say, right, if you use subclassing in any form in its current iteration, right, as it is on live, I am sorry to say, but everything that you are using is completely skillless. I will not take a duel. I will not take in a 1vx seriously if you use subclassing because it's drastically broke as it is on the way it is on PTS. Fair enough, if they address the balance issues, then I will. But currently on PTS, and if it goes live the way it is, I cannot take anything that you're doing seriously because there is so much overtuned raw power due to this that I cannot take skill into account. I cannot. I'm sorry, but I cannot. It's so overtuned. It's the most broken ESO has ever been, and I really do not know what ZeniMax is trying to do here. The only thing that I can think of is that they want to go back to Vengeance and flesh it out, which would be good, but in this case they need to drastically nerf certain things on live until they can figure out how to flesh Vengeance out because this is broken, right? Now, that's that over out the way. What I want to next talk about is the Daetrix summoning skill line to Sorcerer. Everyone knows that I play Sorcerer, and that basically they are forcing Mag Sorcs into subclassing. They've basically nerfed Mag Sorc into the ground so that we are forced into using subclassing. However, my motto has always been the mark of a truly phenomenal player is not meta hopping and not relying on broken stuff to do well, right? So I never will. Even if I have to play at a serious disadvantage, I think this will be the biggest disadvantage that I'll ever be at across the history of ESO, but I will never change. So, let's get into it. We're moving, we're removing the separation of pet versus no pet build in the skill 9 now that subclassing is here. Those who do not wish to interact with pet gameplay can now replace this skill line as a whole. Many abilities in this skill line have been adjusted with this in mind. Again, ZeniMax is basically forcing no pet Mag Sorcs into subclassing. But like I've said before, I don't think it's skill at all. Meta hopping is not skill at all in the slightest. But basically, the devs themselves want us to subclass. So if you don't subclass on a Mag Sorc and you do well, hats off to you, my friend. That is true skill, in my opinion. Even when the devs are against you. Even when the devs are against you and you still do well. Well done. That's skill. Right? So let's look at the nerfs. They've nerfed Hardened Ward, which, in my opinion, it needed to be done. It needed to be done because what would happen is with subclassing, everyone would flock to Hardened Ward, which would be very, very unhealthy. However, if subclassing was not, if Hardened Ward could have a heal, but other classes could not get the heal from Hardened Ward, only Sorcerer that hasn't been subclassed, then it would be balanced. But that just can't happen now. So It's a massive nerf. It's a huge nerf, but you know, it is what it is. And Daedric Prayer is basically saying, use pets, which I never will. Pets are cheesy, and I don't believe in that. The only good change really is Daedric Protection. You basically get 5% damage reduction if you have Ward up, but Ward's being nerfed. Um, Expert Summoner. If you don't use a pet, you basically have a wasted passive. You basically have one wasted passive. We have no use for this passive whatsoever. If you do not have a pet, you lose 5 or 10% max mag and max stamina. It's insane how much of a nerf this is, right? Um, and this is a good change by ZeniMax. I like this change. Credit where it's due. It's but it's not good enough. It's just not good enough. If you think about it, it's a triple blow. Sorcerer got nerfed, which it kind of did need, right? But it got nerfed regardless. Everything else got buffed, which is the double blow. And the triple blow is the fact that if you do not use subclassing, you are already at a disadvantage. So you could argue that Sorcerer, if you do, well, even if you use a pet, is 3 times worse, right? And like now, if this goes live, it's 3 times worse. It's a triple blow to the class, and I am saying this now. If you die even once to a non subclassing Mag Sorc next patch, right, or on PTS now, right, even just once, right, you have been well and truly outskilled. It doesn't matter if you've killed them a million times before, right? It doesn't matter. You should not be losing at all, especially if you're subclassing, right? If you're subclassing or playing a Nightblade or playing a Templar or playing a Warden, right? If you die to a Mag Sorc, right, in its current form on PTS, you've been finessed. Okay? No hesitation for me saying that because you are fighting at such a massive disadvantage that under no circumstances should you beat anybody that's playing a Nightblade, a Templar, or a Warden. Never mind if they subclass it, right? So there's that. It's completely underpowered in its current state, and subclassing's broken. And I will give more opinion on the passives now. So this is a good change. However, I have sent ZeniMax a message saying that this should be after dodge roll also, because, well, guess what? When you have shields up, you have 0 block mitigation. So this is kind of not very good for a person who uses shields, you know? So it should be after roll dodging. Mage's Fury, not really bothered. Capacitor, this passive now increases your magic stamina and recovery, but just makes no difference. An expert mage was a good change. Um, I can see this being good on a class or a Stam Sorc. Not really good for a Mag Sorc that specs it a Max Mag. You know, there's all these different variables going against Max Mag stacking now and using shields in PvP. I think ZeniMax basically want to get away from that playstyle now. It's basically all but confirmed that they do not want shield stacking in PvP. But again, I will make it viable for you lot, regardless of the struggle for me, because like I've said, regardless of the nerfs, regardless of the struggle, the mark of a truly great player is overcoming these issues and not relying on meta hopping. Um, but yeah, Warden has just been massively buffed as well. Warden's been massively buffed as well. So it's going to be a real massive struggle next update for me, but do not worry, I will still perform and I will still give you classes. Not classes, I will still give you a true Mag Sorc build to use if you want to use it. Just know it will be drastically inferior to everything else on the game when this drops, if it drops. But yeah, that's my opinion on subclassing and the patch notes. Hopefully, Zenimax take this into consideration. It changes things, but I'm not holding my breath. And hopefully, something changes, and I'll catch you in the next one.